On a humid Friday night in Buckhead, Atlanta, Simone Carter stepped out of a black Escalade wearing Malik Reynolds' anniversary diamond and another man's grin. She expected tears, shouting, maybe one last desperate plea in the driveway. Instead, Malik leaned against the doorway of their townhouse and said, "Take your time." She laughed like she had already won. What Simone did not know, and what nobody in that house understood yet, was that Malik had stopped fighting for her 3 weeks earlier. He had not opened the door to beg. He had opened it to watch everything begin. If this were the kind of story where the loyal husband crumbles and the cheating wife comes crawling back by sunrise, you could leave now. But if you like slow revelations, hidden moves, and consequences that arrive wearing polished shoes, stay close. Atlanta had watched Malik and Simone for years and called them a power couple. He was disciplined, quiet, and successful, the founder of a logistics software firm. She was magnetic, stylish, and socially gifted, the face everyone remembered at charity galas. To outsiders, their marriage looked expensive, balanced, and envied. That appearance was part of Simone's first mistake. Malik had built his life with the patience of a man who mistrusted luck. Raised by his grandmother in southwest Atlanta, he learned early that silence could protect more than anger ever could. By 36, he owned a growing company, 2 properties, and a reputation for being impossible to rattle. Simone loved telling people she had taught him how to enjoy life. In some ways, she had. She brought music into quiet rooms, laughter into formal dinners, and beauty into spaces Malik used to leave plain. She also brought one dangerous habit into their marriage: the need to be admired by anyone watching. For the first 6 years, that need looked harmless. Simone curated brunches in Midtown, posted luxury date nights, and collected compliments like trophies. She loved being seen beside Malik because his success sharpened her image. When friends joked that he worshipped the ground she walked on, she never corrected them. Truthfully, Malik did love her deeply, but his love was practical. He handled mortgages, taxes, contracts, insurance, and investments while Simone handled appearances. She called him old-fashioned. He called it responsibility. Nobody noticed how often she dismissed the very systems protecting her comfort. Nobody noticed because Malik never announced what he maintained. The first crack appeared at a birthday dinner for Simone's cousin in Sandy Springs. A man named Devin Pierce arrived late, hugged Simone too long, and sat close enough to make strangers assume history. Devin was handsome in the polished, expensive way magazine ads preferred, and he carried himself like rules were for other people. He was also Malik's longtime friend from college, the kind of friend who knew old stories, business failures, family funerals, and weaknesses. Simone introduced them with a smile too bright to be innocent. Malik saw the extra beat in her voice when she said Devin's name and stored it away. Over the next month, Devin appeared everywhere. He joined birthday dinners, afterward drinks, charity panels, and one Sunday cookout at Lake Lanier, where Simone laughed hardest at jokes that were not funny. Malik noticed little things first. Simone started guarding her phone, wearing perfume to run errands, and asking strange questions about business accounts she had never cared about before. She also became oddly tender on nights she needed to explain missing time. To everyone else, Malik seemed oblivious, maybe even weak. That was exactly what Simone wanted. It was also exactly what Malik decided to give her: a husband who looked slower than he truly was. The confirmation came on a Tuesday afternoon, not through some dramatic lipstick stain or reckless text, but through a valet ticket. Malik had stopped by an upscale hotel near Phipps Plaza for a meeting that ended early. At the reception desk, he heard Simone's laugh before he saw her. She crossed the lobby in sunglasses, Devin's hand resting casually on her lower back, moving with the confidence of people who believe secrecy had become routine. Malik stood behind a marble pillar and watched them enter an elevator without urgency. He felt a pain so sharp it nearly bent him, then something colder replaced it. Clarity had arrived. Most people imagine betrayal as a moment of explosion, but Malik experienced it as subtraction. The fantasy of who Simone was left first, then the future he thought they shared, then the instinct to rescue her from what she had chosen. He sat in his car for 40 minutes and replayed the previous year. The suspicious travel upgrades. The private laughter during dinners. The sudden interest in his schedules. The way Devin had started praising Simone's ambition while quietly mocking Malik's caution. By the time Malik drove away, grief had already changed shape. He did not want revenge that screamed. He wanted consequences that could not be reversed. That night, Simone came home with a shopping bag and a story about helping a friend choose bridesmaid dresses in Alpharetta. Malik listened, warmed leftovers, and asked whether she wanted sparkling water. She stared at him, almost disappointed by his calm. The performance only encouraged her. She kissed his cheek, went upstairs, and took a shower long enough to wash off someone else's cologne. Malik remained in the kitchen, opened his laptop, and created a folder labeled April. He dropped in screenshots, timestamps, public posts, account access logs, and copies of insurance documents. Then he called his attorney, Dana Whitfield, at exactly 9:17. Dana did not ask sentimental questions. She asked what was jointly owned, who signed which contracts, and whether there was a prenuptial agreement. There was, though Simone had once called it, just paperwork for rich people with trust issues. Dana reminded Malik that appearances mattered. If Simone suspected legal preparation, she could shift narratives, drain accounts, or manipulate records. Malik answered with the same steadiness he used in negotiations. By midnight, he had appointments set with Dana, his accountant, and his head of security. He also had one rule for himself: no confrontation until every loose thread became a rope. Simone thought silence meant surrender. It meant planning. The next discovery arrived through a place Simone never noticed: the mailbox. Among glossy catalogs and donor invitations sat a certified letter addressed to Devin from a boutique investment group Malik recognized. Inside, thanks to a careless, partially torn envelope, was a notice about defaulted obligations tied to a failed restaurant venture in Miami. Devin was not the polished success he pretended to be. He was balancing image on top of debt. Malik dug further through lawful channels available to him and learned Devin had been drifting between high-risk schemes, unpaid judgments, and borrowed prestige. Suddenly, the affair looked less romantic. Simone had not stolen a prize. She had chosen a beautifully wrapped liability. Still, Malik needed patience. He invited Devin to golf in Marietta, bought him bourbon afterward, and listened to him brag in coded language. Devin loved the thrill of saying dangerous things safely. He hinted that some men were too boring to keep extraordinary women. He smirked about how attraction followed confidence, not commitment. Malik nodded, almost amused, and let Devin mistake restraint for ignorance. During that conversation, Malik learned another crucial fact. Simone had promised Devin access. She had been whispering about Malik's company expansion, implying she could influence introductions, contracts, maybe even capital. Infidelity was only part of the betrayal. She had started treating his work like a handbag. 3 weeks later, Malik quietly restructured everything he could legally separate. The Buckhead townhouse was placed on the market through a trust already established before the marriage. His company's pending partnership agreements were moved behind stricter governance. Shared cards received controlled limits. Personal valuables were documented and secured. Even the luxury SUV Simone loved existed under a lease tied to business use, something she had signed without reading. Dana supervised each move with surgical care. Nothing illegal, nothing theatrical, just a series of locked doors installed before anyone realized the hallway mattered. Malik was not trying to punish Simone emotionally. He was preventing her from walking away with leverage she had not earned. Then he made the strangest choice of all. He became sweeter. He sent flowers to Simone's office. He attended a fundraiser with her and complimented her dress in front of photographers. He booked a weekend spa package he knew she would cancel using a fake family emergency. To everyone watching, Malik looked like a husband trying hard to reconnect. Simone interpreted that as weakness and doubled her contempt. She told a friend over brunch that she had already won the emotional game. What she did not know was that Malik wanted witnesses. He was building a public memory of himself as steady, generous, and unsuspecting while her own carelessness grew louder. At the fundraiser, One of Simone's friends, Patrice, pulled Malik aside near the silent auction table. Her voice shook. She said she hated herself for waiting, but there were rumors everywhere now. Simone and Devin had been seen in New Orleans during a girls' trip. They had been meeting at a private club in West Midtown. Patrice expected Malik to blow up. Instead, he thanked her, offered her a glass of water, and asked whether she would be willing to preserve certain messages if necessary. Patrice stared at him like she had finally met the real Malik. "You already know, don't you?" she whispered. "Enough," he answered. The confrontation, when it came, happened because Simone grew impatient with her own performance. She wanted spectacle, tears, bargaining, maybe public outrage she could frame as possessiveness. One evening, she set her phone face up during dinner, letting Devin's message preview glow across the screen. "Thinking about this weekend already." Malik looked at it, cut another bite of salmon, and said nothing. The silence enraged her. She put down her fork and confessed with a smile that tried to be brave and cruel at once. She said she was in love with Devin, tired of living like an accessory to Malik's schedules, and ready to choose happiness. Malik dabbed his mouth carefully. "Then choose it," he said. No raised voice. No shaking hands. Just 4 words that landed harder than any scream. Simone blinked, waiting for the second act where he begged, accused, or listed memories like evidence. Instead, Malik asked what move-out timeline she preferred. Her expression shifted from triumph to confusion, then back to superiority. She said she could be gone by the weekend. He nodded and told her he would have her personal items packed separately for property records. She laughed, called him cold, and accused him of never really loving her. Malik looked at her with a calm, so complete it felt insulting. "You need an audience," he said. By Saturday, Simone had moved into Devin's high-rise rental near Atlantic Station and posted a filtered photo of champagne glasses with the caption "New Beginnings." Comments flooded in, half encouragement, half curiosity, all feeding the performance she loved. Devin played devoted partner for cameras and reservations. He introduced her as someone who finally chose passion over predictability. Simone glowed under the attention. She assumed Malik was home, grieving in silence, while she stepped into a brighter, freer life. But outside her frame, problems were already taking shape. The townhouse closed faster than expected. The SUV was collected Monday morning. Her supplemental card declined before lunch. Even her building access package fee bounced. When Simone called Malik about the card, he answered on the second ring, polite as customer service. He explained that all non-essential shared accounts have been frozen pending legal separation, per advice of counsel. She scoffed and said she had rights. He agreed that she did and suggested her attorney contact Dana Whitfield. The use of Dana's full name irritated her because it made the situation sound official, advanced, and far less emotional than she wanted. Devin told her not to worry. He said men like Malik always loosened up once the shock wore off. Simone believed him because the alternative was terrifying. Perhaps Malik had not been shocked at all. The next discovery came from Devin's closet. Simone was looking for a garment bag when she found 2 unopened final notices, a repossession warning, and a tax lien envelope shoved behind designer shoeboxes. When Devin came home, she confronted him lightly at first, expecting some clever explanation. He gave one: temporary cash flow issues, investor delays, accounting errors. But as she pressed, his charm thinned. The penthouse was rented through a friend. The watch she admired was borrowed. The business venture he bragged about existed mostly in presentations and dinners. Simone realized, too late, that Devin had been consuming status, not creating it. She had left security for a spotlight with no stage. At first, she tried to adapt. She cooked, laughed, cut spending, and told herself every ambitious man had uneven seasons. But Devin loved admiration far more than sacrifice. He resented questions, avoided invoices, and disappeared at night under the excuse of networking. Once, Simone followed him to a rooftop bar and watched him charm a woman with the same lines he had used on her. For the first time, humiliation reached deeper than pride. She was not the chosen exception. She was the current accessory. Meanwhile, Social invitations thinned. Couples who once adored her now seemed booked, distant, or strangely formal. Atlanta had begun receiving quiet context from places Simone could not control. That context did not arrive through gossip alone. Dana filed cleanly. Patrice supplied preserved messages. Hotel timestamps matched travel lies. Devin's texts about access to Malik's company became relevant in negotiations involving reputational risk. None of it was posted online. None of it needed to be. Within certain circles, especially among donors, board members, and founders, people simply adjusted. Simone stopped getting asked to host events. A boutique brand delayed her collaboration indefinitely. A charity chair reassigned her gala role without explanation. Every room she entered now contained someone who knew enough to smile politely and trust her less. Public disgrace would have been easier. Private exclusion was harder to fight. Then came a hearing about marital assets. Simone arrived expecting compromise rooted in guilt. She wore cream silk, carried practiced sadness, and planned to emphasize emotional neglect. Her attorney, hired late and briefed badly, did his best with limited ammunition. Dana, by contrast, presented timelines, ownership structures, prenuptial clauses, expenditure records, and evidence that Malik had maintained most major assets separately and transparently. The townhouse proceeds were shielded. The company was untouchable. The cards were discretionary. The luxury pieces Simone assumed were gifts without conditions turned out to be insured items with documented ownership. By lunch recess, she understood the terrible shape of her mistake. She had left with jewelry, not ground. Even then, Malik did not gloat. That made everything worse. He sat across the conference table in a navy suit, answering questions with composure so complete it felt merciless. When Simone tried to provoke him by saying he cared more about spreadsheets than people, he merely said, "I cared enough to protect what fed us." The mediator watched him with quiet respect. Simone felt the room turning, not dramatically, but decisively. She had entered believing she could rewrite the marriage into a story of emotional starvation. Instead, every new document revealed a different narrative. Malik had built. She had consumed. Malik had planned. She had assumed. He was not punishing her. He was surviving her accurately. After the hearing, Simone waited in the garage and approached Malik by his car. Her voice softened into a version he had once loved. She said they had both made mistakes, that Devin had manipulated her, that maybe too much had happened too fast. Malik listened without interrupting. She stepped closer and reached for his sleeve. "I know you still love me," she said. He looked at her hand until she withdrew it. Then he delivered a truth more cutting than insult. "I love the woman I thought you were," he said. "You've spent months introducing me to someone else." Simone's mouth trembled, but he was already unlocking his door. 2 days later, Devin vanished for 18 hours and returned furious. One of the investors he had been chasing had pulled out after hearing concerns about trust and discretion. Another refused to join any deal with someone entangled in potential misuse of confidential business access. Devin accused Simone of bringing scandal into his life. Simone laughed bitterly at the hypocrisy, and the fight that followed stripped away their last illusion. He admitted he had pursued her partly because taking Malik's wife felt like beating Malik. She admitted she enjoyed choosing a man reckless enough to make her feel unforgettable. By midnight, they were shouting not as lovers, but as mirrors catching ugliness. The breakup was ugly in the ordinary way, which made it crueler. No shattered glass, no dramatic chase, just insults that stayed because they were precise. Devin called Simone expensive and hollow. Simone called Devin a counterfeit man, wearing borrowed confidence. By morning, he had changed the entry code and left her suitcases with a concierge. She stood in heels on a polished lobby floor, waiting for a rideshare while staff avoided her eyes. There was nowhere glamorous to go. Her cousin's guest room in Decatur smelled like lavender spray and pity. For the first time in years, Simone had to carry her own bags, and nobody offered to take them. You would think rock bottom arrived there, but the story kept opening. From her cousin's room, Simone scrolled through social media and found a photo that hollowed her out. Malik at Sunday brunch in Inman Park with his grandmother, his sister, Dana, Patrice, and several friends she thought had always been hers too. Nobody looked scandalized. Nobody looked wounded on his behalf. They looked relieved. In another photo, a week later, Malik attended a youth entrepreneurship event at Morehouse, speaking about discipline, recovery, and stewardship. The comments praised his composure, wisdom, and generosity. Simone finally understood the thing she had misread from the beginning. Malik was never socially dependent on her shine. She was. Malik's real revenge, however, had one final layer. Months before the affair surfaced, Simone had persuaded him to let her lead a lifestyle podcast under a new media umbrella using seed money he provided. She treated it like a hobby and a branding vehicle. Once the separation began, Malik reviewed the paperwork she had ignored. The project had performance benchmarks, conduct clauses, and a reversion structure tied to fiduciary standards. Because Simone abandoned operations and compromised sponsor confidence through documented misconduct, the brand reverted entirely to the parent entity. Malik relaunched it without her under a different host, donated its first profits to women rebuilding after financial abuse, and never mentioned Simone by name. That move spread through Atlanta with devastating elegance. Simone had always imagined revenge as public humiliation, some messy scene she could survive by calling her ex bitter. But Malik chose something colder. He converted her favorite stage into proof that she had mistaken visibility for value. Sponsors returned, listeners grew, and the rebranded show gained praise for substance Simone never cared to build. Winter came early that year, and when Simone finally stopped Malik outside a cafe near Piedmont Park, he answered her only question with brutal calm. "Not all of it was planned," he said. "Only the part where I stopped saving you from your choices." She had won the man and lost everything else. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.